Yeah, that is so good.
Auntie Sade, what have you heard?
Okay, so my story, you just get up, it's just a triggering one as well. Let's just say that is about Murad Merali. He is a YouTuber. He's kind of shot to like popularity through commentating on Love Island and everything, and doing like a few like viral interviews as well. And I mean, I can't remember what day it should. No, I don't think it's necessary. I don't know what day it was. Maybe it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday or something a couple of days ago, where it was just like all over Twitter, these leaked videos and images from his OnlyFans account, apparently, were just like exploded onto the internet. It was like videos and images of him like doing foot fetish content, I guess, kind of thing. He was being like a bit of a sex worker, I think. He was doing some sex work, yeah, and he was doing foot fetish, like putting his foot in people's faces, in their mouths, I believe, and then also engaging in like water sports, I think, in a sense of like getting people to drink his urine, and then also the most kind of like one is like involving in race play, which is apparently when the people involved consent to be abused in a racial manner and stuff. And like, yeah, it was just a big shock because I think he just done like some big event at the end of Love Island. He was like thrown in the hat to replace like Laura. Do you know what I mean? And then it was just like, whoa, what is all this? And basically he done an apology. He done an apology video where he kind of like explained, and this is trigger warning, talking about rape, so where he was raped when he was 14, and part of that he had like a foot put in his mouth and stuff, and that he said was like part of like where his like foot fetish came from. And he said to basically, he was saying to escape that whole situation, he needed money, and that's when he started going into the sex work to do this type of thing. So he explained his story. He said that the I think it was the imagery, that the racial comments weren't him. But I think, and I haven't watched the videos myself, I can only go by what people have said, is that you can hear him saying some things in the video. So it's just like his apology isn't been seen as genuine. And it's been seen as a bit of like a non-apology because he hasn't really addressed the race play aspect of it. So yeah, I just wanted to know, did you hear about it? What did you think about this? Like, what are your thoughts? Do you think he's done out here as well? Do you think he can ever really, because the trajectory he was going for, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was on Love Island After Sun, like next season, like I would have seen him there and thought, okay, nothing of it. But because this has happened, what do you think?
I feel for him, you know. I actually really like Murad. I like how he's cultivated his YouTube platform, and his interviews are really good. I hope there's enough time in between Love Islands that this can kind of like weather its storm, and he will get a place on the actual show. Because I do think, to me, there's, from the little clips of videos that I saw, it seemed like everything was consensual. And I personally don't understand race play, but consenting adults to do it, and they want to be abused, and you know, they add in all of the racial slurs in there as well. So I don't know. It seems like people were at it, and I don't think there's anything. I'm not offended by anything that I saw. It just seemed like, and I felt more sorry for him that he had to explain his abuse and give context to something that he has done in his past that allowed him to leave his situation that he was in. I just really felt like somebody's coming after him, and it's like, why are you coming after this dude? Like, all he wants to do is be a presenter. I just really felt for him. So yeah, I hope he is able to get in there, and I hope people forget about it and forgive him as well. It's like, humans do human shit. And he wasn't abusing anybody. They were all consenting adults. indulging in sexual practices that lots of us don't understand.
Also, is this behind a paywall? Like, this is behind, like, say for instance, an OnlyFans is
I would
so.
imagine so.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
think most of it
private?
was.
If
Yeah.
it's not private videos that he's not expecting people to pay him for, then I think that's different. Like, if that was almost like revenge porn, somebody put it out to be malicious, then I think that's different. You could, well, I could like give it a blight because this is something somebody does in the privacy of their home. They have no intention of other people who were outside of that activity seeing it. But if somebody's actually put this online for other people to pay for it with the racial slurs and, you know, that format of whatever, like, then I'm like, you put this out online for money. Like, this is very different than you just doing something in your home and it's some home edit. You know what I mean? This is you putting this out on the internet. And what we know for sure is that somebody's going to use a phone record and put your business outside of the paywall. And so I don't want anyone's career to not take off, but I do think we're in a time where we have to be uber mindful. I mean, people are digging up tweets from 10 years ago where somebody said, la, 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 and we know this, you know? So I think that this person has to take some accountability. I do feel some compassion though, because they were abused and maybe haven't done some healing around that. And, you know, but if you're putting this up behind a paywall, then you know what you're up to. You're trying to get some coins.
I've never heard of him until this story. Because I'm not in the Love Island space as well, especially because I've seen that he's quite popular because of his Love Island commentary. Outside other stuff, so I've never ever heard of him. So my opinion is very surface. And it does feed into what we were talking about before, unhealed people getting into the public eye and having potentially backstories that, if exposed, can damage you. And whether it's positive, like, and you can either turn it around and use it as a positive story to build up of, or you're gonna have to take time, sort it out, and come back again in a different way. I don't know, I have no emotion for him, so whether I feel sorry for him, it's not that. No one, you know, the abuse that he said on his video sounds a lot. He, you know, that's a lot for anyone to deal with and have to deal with, and it's understandable that people who are sexual abuse victims go on to sexually abuse or go on to do things that society deems as dangerous or, what's the word? I don't know, whatever the word is, that's just not normal in quotes. So, but again, if they're consensual adults and he hasn't hurt anyone for the sexual play, that's not for anyone, that's, you know, that's his business. The racial part of it, because I think I saw, and you guys who know him, correct me if I'm wrong, that he does speak out about racial atrocities in the industry. So that's the part, excuse me, that's the part where what you're doing, bruv, because that's the part where it can be seen as manipulative. You know what you're doing behind closed doors or behind your paywall, but then you're going out in public to speak. There's no, I can't feel sorry for you for that, because what are you doing? Because that means there's an element of knowing what you're doing. You're not, I mean, you could be broken. You could literally be broken and trying to figure it all out. But you have to deal with the consequences of what happens here, because you were doing race play, calling people out derogatorily for pay, for sexual pleasure. It's a whole world and a whole realm that no one's going to really understand. I don't think anyone needs to feel sorry for you and forgive you in that sense, or you have to be able to deal with the response that's coming from that. That's very hypocritical. So deal with the consequences. I don't want him to hurt himself. I don't want him to be, you know, abused in a way that is detrimental to his life, but he needs to take time out. And if he doesn't get a Love Island gig again, that's okay. There's other spaces and other things you can do. I don't think he deserves a role or anything like that. Go and heal and then come back again and see what type of person you are after the healing. I think that's my opinion about this guy that I have no clue who he is.
Yeah, I would say I've seen more of his clips on like Love Island stuff and everything like that. And like we do have to like remember, like, Love Island is a very exploitative like reality TV show. Basically, like you can based on, I'm not saying his interviews have done this, but based on clips of some of those interviews, that can raise a person up, or it can, you know, put them in the firing line as well. So he's very well aware of how the game works. And do you know what I mean? And the advantage and the disadvantages of that. Like, I think he's like super aware. I would be shocked if he was unaware of how that works, kind of thing, because that is literally how he makes his money and how he stays relevant. Although I think what happened to him in childhood, that is just absolutely, you know, terrible. Feel for the guy. Didn't have to mention it. That wasn't, as far as I'm aware, that wasn't key to the story of what he was saying. He chose to mention it in that moment. And unfortunately, me with my cynical hat on, sometimes it's like, is this being mentioned as a distraction to what actually happened? Do you know what I mean? And that is with my cynical hat on, not taken away from, you know, anything that's happened to him or anything like that. Is terrible. I think he needs help and support to deal with that. Is a terrible, terrible thing. And maybe that's a part of his life that he should have dealt with privately and not in a public way, in this way. Do you know what I mean? I don't necessarily know if that was the best method to deal with it, because it is such a serious thing. But, you know, he kind of got caught out. And I think it is that disconnect again. Like, it's just like, you are publicly, you know, using your platform to fight racism, but in your private life, you are engaging in practices that encourage racism. Like, that is a disconnect to you as a, and the thing is, it's like, we're not stupid people. Like, we're not, humans are not stupid. Like, if they see that disconnect, they're going to call you out on it. Like, it's just like, they're going to say something about it. And I think it's like, that isn't, I think sometimes it's really quick to put that in the bullying bucket. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, no, that isn't, it's actually more complex than that. What it is that you've created a persona that's saying one thing, and now something else is shown, another side of your persona which doesn't match up. And instead of you to say, you know what, I fucked up, do you know what I mean, that this is a private part of my life, but I need help and work on understanding why race play in particular is something that I need to have in my life. Do you know what I mean? Because of the racial aspect of what he does in his public life, fighting against it, there's something's not clicking where you are getting pleasure out of calling people, or do you know what I mean? Like, that is something that needs to maybe go to therapy about, because you are talking about it so much in your everyday. Do you know what I mean?
Why do you want to die under this tree though? Also, like, just don't talk about the race stuff. Why are you out here championing for like,
well, this is the thing.
People are crazy.
Because this is the thing, it's popular. This is the thing. This is what makes me think, like, sometimes, like, you kind of have to take these things with a pinch of salt. Like, for some people, it helps their platform. It helps them to get more views, more clicks, more likes if they call out things, and also as well, you could potentially argue he could be more of a palatable figurehead for this type of conversation as well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I'm just like, I'm a bit more kind of like, feel for the guy in terms of what happens in his past, but this here, whatever you do in your bedroom, that's really up to you. Do you know what I mean? But there's clearly some things you need to work out, babe. There's clearly some things you need to work out, and that would have been more of a genuine apology that I would have liked to hear. Like, actually, I've got to do some self-work. I need to take some time out. I need to figure this stuff out, rather than, I didn't write that stuff, and this is what happened to me when I was 14. Do you know what I mean? Like, those are two different, like, one is more distracting and actually creating sympathy, and one is more accountability.
I think how I interpreted what he was saying was explaining the hypersexuality that we were seeing in these clips was a direct result, as he's processing it, from the abuse. And I think race play, when you hear of people talking who are really into it, it is to me, it comes under, it's like very similar to just any type of like sadomasochism. It's like there's a pain there, and in order to get to the feeling, they need extreme forms of anything to get there. And one way that gets there is being racially slandered by somebody else. So it's definitely all rooted in trauma. But I don't think, because I don't understand it and I don't suffer from it, I don't see it as a bad thing. I think of it as a way that people are experiencing life. and how they choose to get through it, as long as you're not hurting anybody. If that's how you're going to feel, it's how you're going to feel.
So one of the thing is, as long as you're not hurting anybody, until those people really and truly come out and say it's 100% consensual, we're just taking his word for it. There's that. And then also that I don't like the idea of like, if you have a fetish, I don't even like the word fetish, because if you're into something, that you're into something, that's your private business. And I think like that association with being into something that's not necessarily a social norm and also a sexual trauma is like, that is again pushing a narrative that isn't true for a lot of people that engage in this type of sexual activity. Do you know what I mean? So again, it's just like, I don't know, I just found it like really confusing and a little bit misleading. Do you know what I mean? So like, I get like it's his experience, but again, I don't think it was necessary. It wasn't, he didn't have to actually talk about his sexual, sorry, not his
abuse.
Yeah, his abuse, his sexual abuse in that moment. That wasn't necessarily the moment that he had to speak about. He doesn't have to speak about it ever, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just like, and I don't want people, especially if you've been dealing with, you know, things like this or know people have, like, that isn't necessarily why they do the things that they do, like moving forward. Do you know what I mean? He's just said it, that's for his case. And I think for people that don't know about that stuff, it's easy to kind of have that stereotypical viewpoint, which he's reinforced.
I think in general, no one, I feel abstract talking about this guy. I generally have no emotion for him. And that's another thing. When you don't know someone, don't have a connection in any type of way, your perspective can be sometimes very hypocritical or biased. But what not everyone has the tools. So maybe he feels like, or he felt like, and it's that explanation, like justification, his reasoning, and if it's an excuse, like this is trying to say so much in an apology, because, you know, especially the court of social media, the court of the audience, is your apology, is your behavior, can you justify it in a way that we will not cancel you and get rid of you and spoil your bag, spoil your career, end you forever. And go on.
Just another thing, that he is also known for doing that to other people who've done apologies.
Okay. Oh, well, okay, this
break
is
them down, and he would say like, "Oh, is that genuine? Oh, do you know what I mean?" So it's just like.
So the vicious circle of that pressure. So imagine you're someone who cusses people for doing apologies. Now you've got to do an apology. So I can imagine what my thought process is like, I need to draw for everything so everyone knows that I'm either believes I'm genuine or knows that I'm genuinely sorry. Yeah. And so then the best, what do I draw for? The trauma that I've been battling, plaguing me for years. That could be a genuine reason why he's gone into these spaces, but it doesn't satisfy everyone, because that's not even, as you're saying, Shadi, that shouldn't even come into it, because you did what you did and you're in a space where you kind of know how the industry works. But this is what it is like, ideally, before anyone gets to be a presenter, a music artist, or an artistic representative, or in a place where you're in the public eye, all the mental health, and that slows the business down. That's why there's no money in having healed people be in the forefront, because you need people, and also genius. We've talked about this before. Genius or talent seems to be associated with brokenness. So many of our revered icons, artistic icons, have had such damaged past, and because they're so, into quotes, brilliant, they're forgiven their madnesses because we, the consumer, are enjoying their art, and it seems to be synonymous that madness, depravity, brokenness, abuse creates these wonderful geniuses that we must accept. All these type of things, and people feed into that. And then it could be the fact where he's like, well, you know, it's easy to say that I've had abuse because that's where people relate to. So many people are abused. It's now a narrative. I've been abused. I've been this. I've been that. That's my story. Love me for that. Forgive me for that. And let's move on to the next step. And let me get my next job, because I've been honest about what happened to me in my past.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Go on, Remy.
No, I was just saying, because like it seems like this person is playing both sides of the coin. Like they know how to drive the narrative because they've said certain things about, you know, how other people have presented their apologies and stuff like that, and then they use the back end of their experience to like make sure that they tap into that vulnerability and compassion from people, because they know how like the public can be really empathetic and like feel sorry, and even if the opinion about this person is split 50-50, it's still 50-50, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I do think if I was on his PR team, I definitely would have told him to put all out on the table. Like how he said, I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to, I would be telling him to do exactly the same thing. I think in his line of work, he has to. Like a Wendy Williams, I think you can't have skeletons in your closet because they will come out as well. It's like you just have to put it all out there on the table so people can pick which part of you they want to associate with and what they don't want to associate with. But I do hope that he, with this exposure that he's had and him saying everything, well, as he says he said everything, comes out, that there is a deeper level of empathy that he has for other people in this same type of situation.
Yeah.
And it can only make him better.
Yeah.
He's experienced the form of cancellation. So now when it happens to other people and they're in it, he doesn't jump on that wave of negativity, and maybe he'll have more empathy to share a story in a slightly different light because he's experienced what it's like when everybody's calling you a share.
Facts.